eBay sellers. You have landed on episode number 106 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is March 29th, 2023. And I have to announce, because this is a big deal to me, that tomorrow, March 30th, is my 20th anniversary on eBay. If you go to your feedback page, you can see the date your eBay account was opened. And really, I consider my eBay business my third child. I have nurtured it, protected it, and kept it healthy for 2 decades now. I have touched my eBay business every single day over those 20 years. I know some of you listening have been at it longer than I have, but 20 years is over a third of my life that I have had an eBay business. So I will be celebrating this exciting anniversary this week by taking a day off and getting outside and doing something active with a friend. That's the way I celebrate. Not real exciting for some of you, but maybe we'll have a cocktail after that. So anyway, just wanted to share that fun news with you and encourage you to keep going, because time really passes quickly, and time is going to pass whether you're doing something productive or not. So down the road, you can look back at what you've done and feel a sense of pride and accomplishment for all of your hard work. Okay, on to the chat with Zack, who many of you remarked sounds just like Clint Eastwood.
Hello, listeners. We have a repeat guest with us today, Zack, the garbage man philosopher. That is his name for himself, not mine. So we're checking back in. This is completely unscripted. We're just checking in to see what he's been up to. So how's it going this weekend?
It's fantastic to be back on the show. Really is.
Okay, great. We're recording this on March 12th. It's a Sunday because it's convenient for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we sprang forward last night, and I'm feeling that. Are you?
I am definitely feeling that, yes.
Yeah. We have a gray, rainy day here in Greenville. What's your weather like?
Right now it's nice, but we're set to get 2 huge storms in the next couple days. More snow.
Snow? I was going to say snow or rain?
We got hit by like 18 inches last week, and then there's a couple more coming.
Yikes. And refresh our memory of where you're located.
I'm in Bath, Maine.
Okay. So when does snow stop for you?
Feels like never. Shouldn't be too much longer, but it stays cold.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law came to visit last mid-May, and we were going to my kids' baseball games, and she was huddled under a blanket. Like, when does it ever get warm here?
For 2 weeks in the summer.
About June or so.
Okay.
Before we get started, I wanted to tell the listeners a couple things I like about you.
Oh, well, I would love to hear that.
First of all, I like the fact you call yourself Suzanne instead of the Georgia peach picker or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it's just me.
South Carolina nose picker. I don't know why all the eBay gurus have to have this weird picker nickname, you know. I also like your site, where you can go on your site and brag about your $100 sales, you know.
Okay.
After all this time, I don't actually get that excited about a $100 sale, but I do like going and bragging about myself on your page.
Okay.
I think that's great. And you get to see what everybody else sells.
Yeah, I like that. You know, it's a community.
It is.
And
you get to learn what other people are selling, and you get to learn about all the things you passed up that are worth money that you didn't know about.
We're like, I had one of those and I got rid of it.
I used to find boxes and boxes of old recipes in the trash, and I'd always get mad because I'd see yellow paper and get excited because I like ephemera stuff. I'd be like, it's just recipes, and I'd toss it aside. I found out recipes are worth money.
They are.
Same thing with bathroom stuff. I wasn't looking for somebody's half empty bottle of shampoo. I was looking for antiques. Turns out some bathroom stuff is worth money. I didn't know.
Well, and it has to be full. It can't be partially used if it's cosmetics for health and beauty.
Well, that's good to know.
Well, it's always been a rule, but they really started enforcing it in 2022. And people on the group were saying that their listings were being taken down because they were not new, even though they're listed in the collectibles category.
Mm-hmm.
So just putting that out there if people didn't get that memo, which there wasn't a memo. It just started happening to people. There was no announcement about it.
Really?
Yeah, really. So if you have any.
It's a coconut scented bottle of Barbasol shaving cream from the 80s, but it's probably not full. So I guess
you could just sell the container. You could just empty it out and then just sell the container. And that's eBay legal, because that would be a collectible for just category would that be? And I guess it would be in health and beauty, but you can sell empty perfume bottles. The empties are fine. It's the FDA that's cracking down on selling used health and beauty. And like if it's a spray perfume, I don't see how that can contaminate anything, but it's the FDA that's doing it.
Well, they get to make whatever rules they want, I guess.
That's right. They're the magic government department that can tell us what to do.
Yes. I thought I might do a recap for those who didn't listen to the first one.
Excellent. Go for it.
I talked about how I decided that eBay is an awesome investment compared to like the stock market. Because in the stock market, you might make 15% on a really good year, but on eBay, you can make 1,000% in a week. So I told everybody to treat it like an investment and keep their money, which is advice that's gone over like a lead balloon so far. Nobody wants to keep. People like spending their eBay money, it turns out. So we talked in May. I mentioned at that time that I'd gotten my eBay account up to like $5,000. And just to digress, I'm part of a Volkswagen family, I guess. My dad's first car was a Volkswagen. My family car when I was a kid was a 65 Beetle with a bad starter. So my brother and I used to have to get out and push it so my mother could pop the clutch and start the car.
Okay.
My first car was a 74 Super Beetle. I had a camper bus in college. My brother's first car was a Rabbit, etc. And my father, who lives next door to me, has a really world-class collection of antique Volkswagens. I don't have that kind of money, but I bought another 74 Super Beetle a couple of years ago. And I had it parked by the street. And not long after we talked, some guy knocked on my door and said, I see all these Volkswagens around here. I have one I want to sell. So it turned out this guy was a muscle car guy. His girlfriend always wanted a cute little Beetle bug, though. So he went and bought her this beautiful 73 Beetle that was all restored, had rims and leather seats. And he'd driven it twice. She never learned how to drive a stick, so she never drove it. And then they split up, so it had been sitting in his garage. So I thought this is my chance for my first car flip. So he showed it to me and said, how much do you think it's worth? And I said, honestly, I have no idea, but if you want to sell it to me, I can give you $5,000 for it. He's like, oh man, what? I paid $7,500. I thought it was worth more. I said, you're right. It's probably worth more, but that's what I have in the bank. So you can sell it to me, or I can take pictures and tell my Volkswagen friends about it. Well, he's like, give me $5,500. So I bought the car. I listed it for $9,000, dropped it to $8,000. A guy offered me $7,000 and did a deposit, but then he backed out. So long story short, I still have the car. My first flip has not flipped, but but I do love it. Everywhere I drive, people give me the peace sign and the thumbs up and come talk to me when I'm getting gas. So I'll sell it in the spring and win the eBay game, or I won't sell it and I'll have an awesome car. So it's just a game to me. Either way, I'm happy.
Well, at some point it'll sell. You just don't know when.
Yeah. Now that we're getting closer to spring, I've had 2 messages about it in the last week. but it's currently buried behind the snowbank, so I can't even get it out. It'll sell. It'll sell. I kind of lazily sold through the summer with the kids home. I can't get much done. In the springtime, I should have jumped right back into eBay, but I have ADD and I flit around from one thing to another. And I got all excited about doing voiceovers and audiobook type things.
Okay.
Last time I did your show, I had several people tell me what a great voice I had.
Yes. And they said you sounded like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, something like that.
And it
That's
was, by the way, it was July of 22.
July of 22. Okay, I'm way off. All right. So yeah, I've heard that a lot. I'm very judgmental of my own voice, but I remember when I was in college, I took a little advanced writing class, and there were 10 of us around a table with a professor, and we had to read an essay, and she would critique it. And I read the essay, and she said, "I'm very sorry, I can't critique your essay. I was so entranced by your voice that I didn't hear anything that you said."
Really?
Yeah. And a few years ago, there's a writer I loved when I was a kid named John Belair's, and he died. And I felt like his books were being forgotten. So I did a couple of my own audiobook versions, which is probably illegal, but I put them up on YouTube. And one of them was called The House with a Clock in Its Walls, and they made a movie of it about a year after I did my cheesy audiobook. It shot up to 200,000 views, and I had lots of people telling me, "Oh, I love your voice, and you should do this for a living." And I don't like your voice, but my mother does, and stuff like that. I use your voice to go to sleep at night. So I got all excited. Suddenly I wanted to do this, and I bought a microphone, and I got a bunch of Udemy courses, and converted a closet into a booth, and I was going to start my own podcast about local history. I interviewed a famous author for it. But after going through the fall, concentrating on this, I finally said, this is dumb. I'm putting all my time into a side business that might someday make some money, and totally ignoring my eBay business that I know will make me some money. So,
but that's the way it goes. You're drawn to what you're passionate about.
yes.
And you really don't make money on podcasts.
No.
Well, even if you have ads, which I don't have ads on mine that I'm aware of, unless they're putting them in there without my knowledge, but it'll be like, $25. It's nothing. It's not. And to me, it's like not worth corrupting my audience with ads, because I personally don't like them. And it's just so annoying when all these ads interrupt somebody speaking on YouTube and podcast networks. So
that's not under your control.
I mean, you have to sign up for ads, and then you're open to whatever ads they want to put on there. And I don't like that, because most of the things are not relevant to my audience. It's just, HelloFresh and ZocDoc and all these ads you hear all the time that, anybody, it could apply to anybody, but I don't want my audience to have to sit through that crap. So I don't sign up for ads, and it's not that much money anyway. So I just enjoy doing the podcast, and I feel like the eBay community needs it, because it's real people talking about their real business. It's not people who are talking about what they want to sell, that they bought, that didn't really sell. And I don't know. It's just more real than some of the other podcasts out there. In fact, when I started, I don't think there were any eBay podcasts.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, we're just going to keep rolling with it. And I personally enjoy getting on Zoom and meeting people and talking to you. That's like the highlight of my week, is to meet another seller or to have a repeat guest back and just catch up. Because as you know, in our life, there's not a whole lot of people who get eBay. They can't understand it or share your successes and be excited about it like we can. We're a special breed, resellers.
That's true. I don't talk to many other people about this stuff.
Back to your podcast audiobook experience.
Okay, so yeah, I just shelved it and started going back to selling, and I ended up buying this huge lot of toys, like 200 or 300 toys that I had no room for. So they ended up piled in the living room. My wife is patient, but I knew if I wasn't really showing some effort to get rid of this crap, it was going to be a stressful situation. So yeah, that was about 6 weeks ago. So I started listing and selling like crazy. And so I bounce around to other stuff, but I always come back to eBay eventually. And so it's kind of where I'm at right now. I'll talk about that. It's one of the best sales I've had recently. So I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Okay. In the last podcast, I talked about some weird philosophy stuff. So I have more weird philosophy stuff to talk about.
Okay. Yeah. Lay it on us.
All right. And if you wonder where this comes from, it comes from the fact that I drive a bus and all day long I drive around in a circle and I have too much time to think.
So
I think
you're
that's
kind of
where it
in
comes
that meditative mode of like you're on autopilot and you just whatever drops into your head is what drops into your head.
That's right. I think George Carlin called these brain droppings. So that's how I think of it. So I thought I'd talk about the concept of value. In your books, you teach people what things are worth that they might not know about, the value of things.
Right.
What's interesting to me is that nothing really has an inherent value. God didn't reach down his hand and declare that gold is worth more than a bag of marbles or something.
Mm-hmm.
So the value isn't really in the thing. It's in the person who has it. It's in the person who wants it. And most of the other animals on the planet could care less with anything that us human beings put value on.
Mm-hmm.
A dog will pick a hamburger over a diamond ring every day. So this whole concept of value interests me. It's nothing really has value. It's in the person, and it can vary greatly from one person to another. So, for instance, I watched a show the other day about modern art, and someone had painted a canvas black and then painted a red square in the middle, and that sold for $1 million somewhere. If I saw that on the side of the road with a free sign, I'd just drive right on by that.
Mm-hmm.
It has no value to me whatsoever, except about how I can sell it, I guess. But it's just interesting that a piece of art that one person can find totally looks like something a 4-year-old did can be worth $1 million to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we can take advantage of as sellers. We can buy things for people that don't value their stuff and sell it to people that do. Things can also vary by location. So if you went to an estate sale down there and found a snowmobile, you could probably get it at a pretty good discount.
Mm-hmm.
And then sell it to someone up here for way more money. And I think that's one of probably the best thing about eBay is that we can become worldwide sellers and we can sell stuff that isn't worth much here to somebody in another part of the country, another part of the world.
And that's arbitrage, taking something from one market and selling it in a different market.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where I live, in this town, there's at least a dozen houses built in the 1700s. And I think the average house was built around 1850 or something like that. So there's a lot of old stuff, and I don't think it's worth as much here. At least twice a week, I see an old steamer trunk in the trash pile. They're worth absolutely nothing here. But
Mm-hmm.
I suspect in Arizona or Colorado, where there isn't as many antiques, might be worth a lot more. I don't want to ship a trunk, but that's just
no, but people do use them for the rustic looking beat up trunks like that for maybe decor in a store or something like that. Staging,
right.
Staging purposes.
That's a good point. And even among a single person, a few years ago, I would have paid anything for a bottle of baby formula, but now it's worth nothing to me.
Right. Yeah.
So I just love this fact that value can vary so greatly in different situations and that you can step in there and take advantage of it and make some money.
As long as you realize that if it doesn't have value to you, it doesn't mean it's not going to be valuable to somebody else. That's the hardest concept for new people to grasp is like, why would somebody want that?
True.
You've been looking at it all your life. It's not in the greatest condition because it's old, but there's some guy somewhere 500 miles away that is just waiting for that item to show up on eBay because they want it. And once you can get past the why would somebody want this factor, it just opens up, a whole new world for you.
That's true. And those are the people you want to buy from, the people who say, why would anybody want this?
Exactly. Well, I do. I'll give you $1 for it. And then you turn around and sell it for 100.
That's right. So people have been trading value for a long time. They used to use the barter system, which has a lot of problems. And then they invented money, which is it's really the highest form of value to me. It's almost like pure energy value that it's like something alive almost that can grow and multiply and move around. And we all want to have this money. And so you can have someone hand you a bunch of money, I guess. You could steal it, which we won't talk about. But the only other way to get it is to trade something of value for the money that you want. So I came up with this hierarchy of value. So I told you this was going to be weird. So down at the bottom of for me, at the bottom of the ladder, how to trade value for money, I put small manufacturing, like people who make a birdhouse and sell it on Etsy, or make jewelry and sell it on Etsy. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But you have to put your own money in to buy the tools, put your own money in to buy the materials. You have to do the labor to make this stuff. And then you have to turn into a salesperson and try to sell it. If you can't sell it, then you just wasted all your time. So I put that down at the bottom. Next up on the ladder would be what most of us do, which is hourly wage. At least you're getting paid every time you go to work. But the downside of hourly wage is that there's no backside to it. You put in 8 hours and then you get paid for 8 hours, and then your 8 hours is gone and there's no more money coming. So you have to go create another 8 hours of value the next day. Next would be what we do on eBay, which is instead of creating value, you look around and you realize we're drowning in value in this country. There's so much value that other people have already created that's already up there.
It's that recognition factor. Like, you have to understand and recognize that all this junk you see can be turned into money.
I know. There's so much value in this country that people throw it away. I used to drive the truck in Oklahoma City. Our company picked up half the city. We had 35 residential routes. And then an average day, I'd pick up 21 to 24 tons of stuff. So multiply that by 35 for that half of the city. Multiply that by all the cities in the country. This is how much stuff people are just throwing away. And some of it's eggshells and banana peels, but a lot of it is stuff that still has value in it. People just get rid of it. Same thing with Goodwill. Goodwill's whole business model is people just giving away valuable stuff. And again, the amount of stuff is insane. I used to probably half a dozen times working here with a garbage truck, they sent me down to Gorham, which is where the main hub for Goodwill is. I think it's where the bins are too. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I would back the truck up to the loading dock, and for an hour and a half, they would shove pallet after pallet after pallet of stuff in it. And I would just run the handles and crush it. And you can imagine what a nightmare this was for me as a seller.
Oh God, that just hurts my soul.
I'd go
all
dump
those
it out.
things that's getting crushed.
I usually got a little pile, but I couldn't reach my arm in there. It was the way it was right up against the building. I couldn't grab stuff. So I'd do 3 loads and they'd say, it's time to go home. But that wasn't even half of what we have in here. So this is one store in one small state. This is just the stuff they're getting rid of. They're throwing away. So it blows my mind how much value is out there that people literally just get rid of, or they sell at yard sales for almost for nothing.
Well, and you get a different perspective. You get to see all the waste.
Right.
And most people don't get to see that. I mean, we can imagine what is being thrown out and wasted, but you get to see it right there. And it's just got to be overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. There were times when the weather was bad and it was muddy. In Oklahoma City, I'd be in a line a mile long of garbage trucks, and they'd build one of those huge hills in about 9 months and have to start a new one. That's just one place. But we can go in there and we can find all that value that other people are just getting rid of instead of creating it. And so we're not limited by how much we can create. We're just limited by what we can find, which can be unlimited, really.
Mm-hmm.
So the only downside of what we do is, again, there's no backside to it. Once you sell something, there's no more money to be made. You have to go find more stuff. So the only thing higher I put on there is what I call work once and get paid forever, which is where Stephen King writes a book in 1976 and he's still getting paid for it, even though he doesn't have to work anymore. Or maybe you can count my grandfather, who was in the military and he's been getting a retirement check for 50 years. He had to fight in 2 wars, but he put in 20 years of work and he's getting 70 years of paychecks.
Well, and I think from an eBay perspective, it's called scaling your business. How can you do something once and make money off it over and over again? And that's where having multiples of something comes in handy. Or like back to your birdhouse guy, you could scale that. You could have one plan for one birdhouse and make 100 of them. And, you've only created one listing and you're just selling the same thing over and over again. That happens on all different levels. So eBay, that's what people who come to eBay looking for that set it and forget it type business model. And I don't care what you're selling. And if you have multiples, eBay isn't like that. You can't set it and forget it. You have to engage with customers and answer questions. And, if eBay changes the rule about something and that messes up what you're doing, you can't do it anymore. You got to find something else. So I really don't care for those people out there in social media that are encouraging you to find a set it and forget it business, because I just don't think there is one. If you want to run it well, you have to be involved all the time. You can't just turn your back on it.
I suppose having a store is kind of like that. I do auctions, so if I go a week without listing anything, I no longer have anything for sale.
Okay.
So I guess if you have a store with 1,000 items, then that's more of a long-term thing. But
that's true.
I guess the other thing, I guess, is investing. I guess if you made $1,000 on eBay and invested it, then you might make $50 or $100 a year from that money for the rest of your life. So that's one way to turn eBay into a thing where you get money forever. About 6 weeks ago, I mentioned a toy lot. I was at work at the transfer station, and there's a lady who lives across the street, and she does house cleanouts, and she sells all the stuff out of her 2-car garage. So she has a yard sale every weekend.
Okay.
And I've bought enough stuff from her that now she just calls me and says, "Hey, I got some new stuff." So she actually drove over and said, "Got some neat stuff. You should look at it. You should come right over." So I went over there, and she had this guy's entire toy collection. I guess he'd gone off to a nursing home or something. And I'd gone to work that day just hoping to find a couple interesting things in the trash. I wasn't planning on spending any money. Well, yeah, I spent $1,500 just out of the blue on that stuff. And I've seen a lot of people say in various places that when they go sourcing, they won't spend more than $2 on an item. They won't spend more than $5 on an item. And every time I ever heard that, I'd pound my head against the wall and say, "Why in the world?" I mean, you go to an estate sale and they've got a real Picasso for $200 that you can flip for $20,000, and you're going to go, "Sorry, I only spend $5 at a time." I just didn't understand it.
That's like George Kelly. He knows what things are worth, and you have to look at the potential outcome of your investment. And
right. So
people like me who will spend more than that per item. I mean, I don't like to, but I will if, I'm at Goodwill and something has $20 on it and I can flip it for $300. Yeah, you better believe I'm going to buy that. And I think that comes with experience. You have to have faith in the business model and faith that you've done the research right, that yes, this will happen. You can flip these items for that much. Newer sellers just have to put limits on what they're doing, or maybe they have like a budget. I can only spend this much money on eBay a week. I've been there as a single mom, and eBay was my income. You have to be careful with how much you're spending. So I think there's a lot of behind the scenes kind of stuff, like why people aren't spending more on these items they can flip for a lot of money. They have to have reasons. It's not just, I'm not spending more than $2. It's, why? What's going on that's preventing them from spending more money per item? Maybe they don't have it.
Right. And that, at least for me, I felt like this kind of made me feel like I was right for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I spent all my eBay money, then I wouldn't have had it to spend, or I wouldn't dare to spend more than $2 or $5.
Right.
Or if I depended on my eBay money to pay bills, I'd be scared to spend it.
Exactly.
So what I'm doing for myself, keeping the eBay money totally separate and not spending it, allows me to take that kind of risk, because if those toys turned out to be worth nothing, it would be a bummer. I won't lie, but it wouldn't have actually affected my life any.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I spent all my money on that car and haven't sold it yet. It didn't really affect my life. It set me.
Well, it's a longer term investment, long tail investment. At some point you'll sell it. Even if you only break even, you can sell it.
That's true. It's definitely a cool car.
So wait, go back to the toys. Like, what were they?
Oh, I'll get to that when I get to
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I've been posting them on your site. So
I know. I just want the listeners to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're called circus punks, a lot of them. But yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. I guess the last thing, two more things with the weird philosophy. I thought I'd talk about the morality of selling. I read a really interesting article by Thomas Sowell where he talked about how through history, what he calls middlemen have been hated and persecuted in every society out there. There's a lot of people out there that just feel like it's immoral for anyone to make money on something other than the person who made it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, I've figured out there's three types of people that will sell you stuff to make money. I would think if you're a beginner, first of all, you might wonder if this is a moral thing to do. And second of all, how is it possible? Who's going to sell you stuff that you can turn around? Why wouldn't they sell it themselves? I hear that a lot. Why wouldn't people just sell it themselves? So the first type of person that will sell you stuff is what I call don't know, don't care. These are the people that don't know what their stuff is worth and they could care less. They want it out. These are the people that give their stuff to Goodwill. I think I've heard you mention several times people that parents die and they inherit a house full of junk and they want to sell the house. They don't care about the stuff that's So as far as morality goes, these people don't want money. They want their stuff gone. So when you take their stuff from them, you're giving them what they want. And then you sell it to somebody who wants it and they win. So and you make money. So win-win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
The next type of person is they know what their stuff's worth, but they don't care for some reason. We have a couple really expensive schools around here. There's a private high school here in this town, and there's Bowdoin College over in the next town. And these places cost more than Harvard or Yale to go to. There's a lot of rich kids. And from what I've been told, a lot of these kids, when they go home for the summer, they don't take any of their stuff, their iPad, their Xbox, their mini fridge. They just leave it in the dorm room. Daddy will buy them another one. So the guys who are hired to go in and clean out these dorm rooms make out like a bandit because these kids could care less. I had a friend in college tell me a story that I don't know if I believe, but he said that his next door neighbor had a fully restored 65 Mustang convertible. It was about to go through a horrible divorce, and as he knew his wife was going to try to take the car. So he sold it to my friend for $60 or whatever you have in your wallet or something like that, which I think might be illegal to dump your assets right before you get divorced. And I don't know if I believe the story, but if that's true, this guy had a $20,000, $30,000 car that he sold for nothing. just to spite his wife, right? So he knew it was worth something. Wanted to get rid of it anyway. So that's possible. And
Just
again,
so she couldn't have it. Yeah.
right. So again, morality wise, I don't see any problem with that. Someone knows what their item's worth. The only exception would be is if they're selling it to you cheap because they're trying to help you out, you know. Back a couple of years ago during the pandemic, the price of used cars went through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
My dad wanted a new truck. He offered to sell me his for $20,000. I said no, and he turned right around and the dealer gave him the check for $27,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I could have bought it from him for 20 and sold it to the dealer, but he was only giving it to me cheap to help me out. So I would have felt like a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only place I can think of any more moral problem with that kind of thing. But then the last type of seller is where it gets tricky. It's the ignorant people. It's the guy that has a table of junk and right in the middle is a real Picasso sculpture with a $2 price tag on it. So I wondered what your opinion was. You know, this guy has no idea that he has a valuable item. Are you going to tell him, hey, you know, I think this is real. This is, oh, dude.
I've been in that situation a lot of times. And my feeling is finders keepers, losers weepers. Just one memory that comes to mind is when I found the coveted Disney Little Mermaid snow globe. It's called the Under the Sea snow globe, and it has like 5 or 6 little snow globes on this base, and it's worth $250, something like that. So I was at a yard sale, literally 3 houses down from where I was living, and I was like, oh, I got to pull in and see what they have. Well, they had that one and then another snow globe that was worth about 100, and she had like $20 on each one. And I really only had $30 in cash. And I was like, I'll give you 30 for these 2. She's like, that's fine. They've been in my daughter's closet. She doesn't, you know, she's outgrown them. She doesn't care. So, you know, I was like the lady on the IKEA commercial that is running out, like, start the car, because you know, you got a huge deal and you're going to resell it. And that person doesn't know. And, you know, I just say that eBay is open to anybody. There's no barriers to entry. And if I have this on my wall, if they wanted to, they would have. So that can apply to people in any situation that don't do what you think they should do. And so if she wanted to sell it on eBay and make more money, she could have. I wasn't stopping her. You know, I don't clue people in that I'm buying something for $1 that I'm going to turn around and flip for whatever. Like, that's not my job. You know, if you're on board and you want to learn about eBay, I'm here for you. But it's not my job to go out in the world and tell Goodwill, you know, you really should charge more for this because it's worth $300 on eBay. Nope. I'm just like this silent little, somebody called me an ant one time. They're like, you're like an ant that just takes a crumb from over here and puts it over there and it moves stuff around. And I'm like, yeah. And I just keep my mouth shut, find the deals, because, you know, somebody could have come along before me and gotten it. They didn't. It was there for me. And so I don't feel I'm doing any harm to anybody when I buy something at their garage sale and know what I'm going to do with it and know how much money I'm going to make, because I've been in this business a long time, since 2003. And I've done the work to learn how to do this, and anybody can. It's open to anybody. So I have zero guilt, zero remorse, zero shame. I just go and do my thing.
Well, we're sellers, and I think it's our responsibility to try to figure out what our stuff is worth before we sell it. And same thing with them. They should have looked up their little statue before they listed it.
If they cared. And
if they care, you don't know if they're what type they are. They might be the person who just doesn't care.
Right. Or they're like, yeah, I could probably learn eBay, but it seems so overwhelming, and it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, and I just don't have time for that. There's I don't have time for that, people. And so I make time for it.
Yeah,
That's
I actually don't get caught up in the whole moral question. All I care about is, can I make money on this thing? And
yeah.
I'll give them the money they ask for. Yeah, I even lie. I have to admit. I've always felt it. I've never felt like I need to tell the truth when someone asks me a question that's none of their business.
Right.
Ask you a real personal question right now. You don't have to tell me. And real personal questions to me include, how long have you had this? Why are you selling it? Oh yeah, I've had this for years. I just never used it.
Yeah.
I actually bought it last week. I don't know. I don't know why everybody has to ask those questions.
Yeah. Why do you need to know? Just go to the yard sale and buy what appeals to you. And I mean, their mission is to get rid of the stuff.
That's right.
Like you mentioned, cleaning out a house for an estate, or people who are moving. It's like that moving truck is going to be here in 2 days, and you can't bring all this, or you don't want to. Moving is a great way to downsize, because you really have to think about, do I want to bring this with me? But
Every time I've ever moved, I've put a huge pile of crap out on the side of the road.
exactly. So there's a sense of urgency with moving, that you have to deal with it now. Whereas your lady who has a yard sale every weekend because she just has all the stuff, that does not have the same sense of urgency as, moving trucks coming. I got to be ready.
That's true. So long story short, I don't have any moral issue with buying and selling for whatever reason. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't either.
All right, weirdest for last. I thought I'd talk a minute about the law of attraction, because this is something I've tried a couple of times.
Okay.
I walked into Goodwill and I decided to get myself all psyched up. Like, I'm going to find something awesome. I know I think they call it reverse paranoia. Like you're just certain something awesome's about to happen. And I really got myself all excited. I'm going to find something wicked awesome. And I went through the whole store and found nothing. And I had so convinced myself that I was actually shocked. Like, whoa, I did not find anything. But as I left the store, I decided to just go ahead and Google the drum set I saw. I talked about this in the last one. And that turned out to be the biggest single profit item I ever sold. So that worked out great. I tried it in an antique store in Arkansas. And I actually found something from Maine. It was an antique receipt from a place in Portland with a cool letterhead. And somebody had painted a picture of a sailing ship on it and framed it. And they also had some Happy Hollister's books. And that's all I read from age 7 to 12 were Happy Hollister's books. And I'd never been able to collect them all, because the last one in the series, right after they published it, they canceled it. So instead of 2 million copies, they only printed 70,000 or something. And it was selling for $120 on eBay, and I'm way too cheap to ever pay that. Sure enough, they had a half a dozen Happy Hollister's books, including that rare one, for the same price. I was like, this is great. I don't know why I don't use it. I actually totally forgot about that system until I was trying to think of things to say on this podcast. Why don't I do that anymore? That worked awesome. I think I've heard you say stuff like that, like have this feeling of abundance inside you. And
well, I think it goes along with, manifesting. You think about something, your desires, and you just are open to it coming to you, however it comes to you. And so I do try to have that thought when I go out. Something's being put out just for me right now. 10 minutes before I get there. Or
nice.
The people in front of me, the people ahead of me that have been there and seen this stuff, either they don't sell that kind of thing, or they just don't know it's valuable, because I think we're in a world of more abundance than lack. And you just talked about all the stuff that gets thrown away
That's right.
Goes in your truck and gets crushed, and you're just one of how many thousands or millions of garbage trucks in this country that happens every day. It's going on all around us. All these things are being destroyed and taken to the landfill, and we can't save them all because we can't be everywhere at one time.
That's true.
It's just a matter of how you want to look at it. Okay, yeah, you might go to a thrift store. This happened to me the other day. I went to one. I have a rotation. Like I keep a chart of where I go so that I'm not visiting the same place too often and like it gets restocked. So I have like this rotation I go on. It's every 30 days, I'm going to the same places. So anyway, I went to this one and I was so disappointed. I didn't find hardly anything. I think I found like 3 things and I'm like, gosh, this was a terrible trip. Well, 3 days later, I tried again and I landed at a store that was having a 30% off customer appreciation, 30% off your total bill. You know, everything was on sale. And yeah, I loaded up at that one. I think I bought like 30 things.
Sweet.
And bought things I wouldn't have purchased if they weren't 30% off. But, you know, it dawned on me, I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't had that bad experience a few days ago and had to go out sourcing again. I wouldn't be here. So you just have to trust that everything is working out for your highest good. Even if you don't see it in that moment, you might see it later. So
that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I have a lot of other stories I could tell about that.
Well, we'll have you on again to tell all those.
I guess I should talk about sales. That's the part everybody likes.
Yes, let's hear some of your sales.
It's so hard to remember after all these years, my sales. Things on your site remind me of things. Just somebody else recently talked about selling Disney stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I sold a Disney clock once. It was somebody had it on Marketplace or Craigslist, probably kind of expensive. Then they dropped it down to $60, and it was a Mickey Mouse alarm clock from the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
They said it didn't work. So in my wisdom, I decided to take it apart and see if it was something simple I could fix. And the spring had just sprung all over the place. And in the process, I got a nice big greasy fingerprint on the front of the clock, which was made out of paper. I was like, oh my God, I've just ruined this thing. But it still sold for $250 with broken and with a big old fingerprint on the front of it.
Okay.
So it's been interesting to people following your site. People have reminded me of things. So the first thing I thought I'd talk about is I went to Walmart during the pandemic. And I'm sure you remember all the gyms closed down. And suddenly the price of weights and exercise stuff went through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted a set too. And I was surprised to see in Walmart they had 2 sets of weights for $100 a piece. And I thought, you know, I bet I could buy both of those and sell one for $200 and keep the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I did. But at first I kind of hesitated. I was like, yeah, I didn't really come here to buy stuff like this. And what if I can't sell it? I'll be stuck with 2 of them. And then this light bulb went off in my head. So I bought them and took them home. And then I went on the eBay page that I was a part of then, the eBay group, which has disappeared for some reason. But I was like, hey, everybody, check this out. I'm so smart. I just figured out a way that you can buy and sell on eBay totally risk-free. It's awesome. Here's what you do. You go to eBay, you go to Walmart or Best Buy or Target, you buy something you think will sell, you list it, and if it sells, you make your money. If it doesn't sell, just bring it back to the store and get a refund. It's risk-free. And I got a bunch of comments that were all the same. I remember one said, wow, you know what? You're a real jerk. So you're going to take all the risk of your business and place it onto somebody else's business. That's awesome. I got a bunch of comments like that. Somebody told me that returning stuff, they'll block you after a while if you return too much stuff. But I had so many people tell me I was a jerk, I started to think I must be a jerk. And so I've never pursued that particular strategy of returning stuff. I have a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to that returning stuff anyway, because I live 20 minutes from LL Bean at Freeport.
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for a little while. My mother retired from there. And for like 100 years, they had the most amazing return policy in the world. Return anything from LL Bean, no matter how long it's been, with no receipt, and they'll give you a full refund. And the guy that started LL Bean, whose name was Leon Wood Bean, in case you didn't know.
I didn't.
He thought people were inherently trustworthy, but they're not. And around here, people would go to thrift stores and they'd go to yard sales. They'd go through trash. They'd find a beat up old pair of LL Bean boots and bring it back to the store and get $139 for it.
And I was behind somebody in Goodwill one day years ago that was doing that with like a snowsuit or something. And it was not in great condition. And it was a woman. And she's like, I don't care. I'm just returning it to LL Bean because you can return anything to them. And this is what I do. I go around to thrift stores and look for LL Bean stuff. And I think they would blacklist her. Like, you can't do it more than 3 times or something. But yeah, that was her business model.
Oh, there was a lot of people. There's a ton of LL Bean stuff around here, obviously. Yeah. That was actually the only thing. They never minded me picking in the trash at work, except when they dumped the can from LL Bean. No one was allowed to go near it because that was part of the contract. They didn't want you grabbing stuff and returning it. I had a friend, I won't name names, but every year on his birthday, he'd stomp on his LL Bean sunglasses and go in and get it.
Yeah, I don't think that's real ethical. I think it's for like, oh, I've had these boots 3 years and they're coming apart,
Yes.
so that LL Bean can stand by their products, which they're so durable and well made that they don't really ever fall apart. That policy was created probably as a goodwill gesture to make people feel more confident about buying their products, and not for the whole abusing that policy. I'm sure the creator had no clue it would get to this point.
Well, unfortunately, about 3 or 4 years ago, they finally changed it. You only have a certain amount of time. You have to have a receipt. If every time you return something, they write your name down in the computer, they boot you off after a while.
Right.
Because people took advantage of this return policy, they ruined 100 years of coolness. But so anyway, I don't know what you think of that, but on to the next sale. I went to a yard sale in Oklahoma City. It was at the state fair. They called it a yard sale, but there were dozens of sellers. I dug through a box and I found a book, and it was a blank book. I think they might be called autograph books because people wrote in it. It was like the type of thing you see in the front of a yearbook. Like, I was glad to go to school with you. Good luck in the future. But it was from 1847, and it was from a small college called Farmers College in Ohio. So I showed it to the lady and she said, "Oh, this is special. I'll have to have $10. I said, "Okay." And it also had illustrations. People had drawn flowers, and there was a drawing of a ruined church, all from 1847. So I went home and looked this up, and it turned out this college was a very small school back then, had 70 students. Excuse me. And one of them was a 15-year-old named Benjamin Harrison, who would become president. And he's not a very good president, but one thing I like about him is he did come to Bath. He actually did a speech half a block from my house.
Oh, wow.
So I have a little bit of a connection to him. So I was like, oh my God, I wonder if I have an early presidential signature. So I tore through it, and unfortunately, I didn't see anything that said Benjamin Harrison. I scanned it and sent it to the Historical Society out there. And they said, yeah, we've never seen anything like this before. It doesn't look like Benjamin Harrison wrote in it, but his future wife did, the first lady. She's in there. And his father-in-law, who was dean of the college and moved into the White House with them when they went. Then they said, we have a little fund for acquiring things like this. Would you take $250 for it? I said, okay. Well, actually, I hesitated because the more I learn about the history of something, the more attached I feel to it.
Right.
Eventually, I thought, I've never even been to Ohio. This should probably be with the Historical Society out there. So I sent it to them, and in return, they sent me a bunch of books about that college and that town. It was a really neat thing. I'm glad it's there.
Oh, good. That was a successful rehoming.
Successful rehoming. Next, some speakers. Somebody on Marketplace was selling an Army projector and record player with speakers from the 1950s. And I decided to look it up, and I discovered that the speakers themselves, the actual speaker with the cone that they used in these, was very rare and highly desirable by audiophiles, they call themselves. So I bought it for $100, and each speaker was in its own aluminum, big, heavy case. And I was concerned about what shipping would be, so I took the actual speakers out and listed them. And they sold for like $550.
Oh, wow.
And I packed them like crap, and they showed up there smashed. And I felt really bad about it. But the good thing about international shipping is it had passed through Kentucky. So they gave the guy his $550 back, and I got to keep my $550.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody that's hesitant about using international shipping, that's a great thing about it. If it had been someone in California that bought it, I would have had to pay him back his $500.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, speakers are very fragile. They're literally made of paper. I should have left them in the case and just dealt with the extra shipping. But yeah, I like international shipping. 60s furniture. Okay, I went to a house auction. My friend, who's way more advanced than me, actually bought the house, but the place was full of 60s furniture, and there was an Eames chair in there. It sold
Okay.
for big money, but every other piece of furniture in there, nobody else wanted. There was only a few people there. So for some reason that I still don't understand, I bought every other piece of furniture in that house for $21.
Oh, my.
Which is weird considering I lived in an efficiency apartment that had nowhere to put anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some other stuff. There was 2 antique wooden boxes with butterflies in them. They got $50 a piece for those. And there was even a cool jar full of coins that I got for $10, and it had $21 worth of coins in it. Can't beat that. But my friend who bought the house, he let me load all this furniture into his pickup, and he had a trailer too. And I went to a used furniture store I knew about, and they didn't want it, but they gave me this guy's business card. And I called him and went over to his house, and he looked at everything and said, I can give you $475. I just bought it that morning for $21. Thank God he bought it, because I have no idea what my plan was. Maybe I would have got a storage unit or something. I get a little overexcited sometimes.
I think we all do. Yeah.
But it turned out to be a good sale. Diver radio. So the high school I went to was built in 1929. My grandma went there, and my mother went there, and I went there. I was hoping my kids would go there, but it got too old, and they built a new one about 3 years ago. And they didn't want a bunch of old beat up desks in there, so they bought all new stuff. And then they said they were going to have a yard sale at the old high school to sell off all the junk that was left behind. And it was a Friday and Saturday. I couldn't go Friday because I had to work. And I thought everything would be gone. So I went Saturday at like noon, just hoping to find a souvenir from high school. And I was completely overwhelmed. This was a 3-story, huge high school, completely full of stuff. The science wing was full of scientific equipment and old slides and boxes full of test strips and antique lamps. And the art room was full of art supplies and art books. There was a dark room from the old days that had 8 enlargers and a bunch of old photography equipment. There was a whole exercise room full of commercial exercise stuff, and on and on and on. If I had had any clue how much stuff was in there, I would have probably gotten a huge storage unit in the U-Haul.
Mm-hmm.
They were just selling it for whatever you wanted to pay. They just wanted to get rid of it. And the amount of stuff I saw blew my mind. And they said all day Friday, people had been showing up with U-Hauls and hauling stuff away. And I went in the old auditorium and I found box after box full of wireless microphones and amps and that kind of thing. I took that stuff and made some good money. I ended up just filling up my wife's minivan with one load. I found out later that after that, they had a free day where you could go in and take anything for free.
Ah,
But I was like, oh my God, there's enough stuff in here to keep me busy on eBay for like 5 years. I wish I had some clue. But the coolest sale I had from that, and I have no idea why it was there. It was an old metal tube radio from World War II. It was designed to talk to helmet divers underwater. It had these big knobs on the front. It's a diver 1, diver 2, diver 3. And we have an awesome museum here in Bath called the Maine Maritime Museum. And they had an exhibit of shipwreck stuff with helmet, like a whole helmet diver suit. And they actually had the same radio in their exhibit, except theirs was all beat up and mine looked like pristine. So I've always loved underwater stuff. I had a hard time letting it go. Plus it weighed 90 pounds. I wasn't sure I wanted to ship it.
oh, God.
But eventually I double, triple boxed it and listed it, and it sold for $360. And then with shipping, I got to pay well over $600 for it.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah. And I paid, all I had in my pocket was $30. I told them I felt bad and I should go get some more money with all the stuff I got. But they took the 30.
We're going to wrap it up. Thanks for coming on again. And
yeah, I thought this one would be shorter, but boy, I can talk.
Again, it's Zachary McDore, and you can look for him on the Facebook group. You post pretty frequently. So a lot of your stuff just shows up on your trash route. So what a great way to rehome things and rescue things.
I try.
So, okay, well, we will look for you on the Facebook group, and thanks for coming on again.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you again, Zack, for returning as a guest. We will be sure to check in with you every few months to see how things are going. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay, today's trivia question goes back to the Roman Empire. What does it mean to cross the Rubicon? Here are a few seconds to think about it. January 10th, 49 BC, Julius Caesar defied an ultimatum set to him by the Senate. If he brought his veteran armies across the river Rubicon in northern Italy, the Republic would be in a state of civil war. Fully aware of the momentous nature of his decision, Caesar ignored the warning and began to march south on Rome. To this day, the phrase, "to cross the Rubicon," means to undertake an action so decisive that there can be no turning back. The civil war that followed this decision is seen by historians as the inevitable culmination of a movement that had begun decades prior. So if you ever hear somebody say, "Well, we've crossed the Rubicon," it means the deed cannot be undone. You can't go back to the way it was. Next week, my guest is Jane, who is a frequent poster on the Money Making Mondays. She has recently, and I mean really recently, like a month ago, opened her own thrift store selling items she gets for free. I love what she is doing as a single mom. She really hustles it, and for the resellers in her community. Okay, everybody, that's it for this episode. Keep moving forward and make every day count. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.